for everyday meals.
I'm in Kinsale to taste some mead, which is apparently the world's oldest alcoholic drink. Kate, when people think of mead, they think of it as very sweet because it's made with honey. But when I'm interested to learn that it works really well with seafood.
That's right. You can make mead all the way from very sweet all the way to bone dry. It just depends on how many of the sugars you ferment out into alcohol.
And what's this one now I'm going to taste?
So this is Melomel style mead. It's made with black currants from Wexford, full of flavour, balanced with sweetness from dark cherries. And that's matured for about 18 months, so it's a very smooth, very easy to drink wild red mead.
It's delicious.
Yeah.
Tell me about the history of mead.
Mead is the oldest alcohol in the world. It goes back to at least 6,500 BC, 4,000 years before we invented the wheel. But it's all over the world. It's a global drink, the nectar of the gods in ancient Greek mythology. It's the national drink of Ethiopia, for example. But in Ireland, it's been through our history since probably about the 5th century.
And what are the ingredients in mead?
So the most traditional style mead is honey, water and yeast. And then the Melomel styles, you'd be putting in whatever's growing locally. You're getting hedgerow, blackberries, blackcurrants, sloes, hips and haws. It was called wine of the berry. And it speeds up the fermentation, having the berries in. So certainly it would have been what we were drinking long ago.
And what one would this pair well with?
So roast duck would be amazing, sticky barbecue ribs. And then for seafood, I think it could go very well with monkfish. If you had kind of a berry sauce would be nice with that.
Because there's a nice acidity, it's not too sweet.
Yeah.
And it must be the berries that give it the acidity too.
Honey itself is quite acidic as well. And of course the black currants are quite tart, which is why we bring in the sweetness from the cherries, yes.
Lovely. So you have other ones now for me to taste.
Yes, the one that we often have, say, with oysters. We've got these oysters here from the Rare restaurant in Kinsale.
They're beautifully presented.
He's an artist, yes. So this is Atlantic dry mead. It's orange blossom honey, fermented off dry. When you taste it, you'll get the honey flavour, but it's not sweet. So your brain should be picking up really that it's crisp, floral and citrus. Completely different from the wild red mead, but with fish and seafood, it's a fantastic pairing. So into a fresh shucked oyster, and then off you go.
So the different flavoured honeys, the way you get lavender, you get different honeys. You said this is the orange blossom.
That's right.
Do they really make a big difference in the flavouring of the actual mead?
You want to choose a honey that's got a distinguishable, punchy flavour, and that will last through fermentation. If you get a honey that just tastes sweet, you're not going to get the nectar flavour that you really enjoy with a traditional mead like that one.
OK, so that's our first white. What's the next one?
This is the same mead, but it's been aged for the last year in a white port barrel. We bring the barrels over from Portugal and pour the mead in and leave it in the meadery for about a year. And it takes its own sweet time, so we have to taste it regularly to see.
And it's a different colour.
Yeah, it's slightly darker. You're getting that from the charring inside of the barrel. The mead soaks through the charring into the French oak barrel. It brings back the flavour of the white port.
That's really good, isn't it? Yeah. Very elegant. And what would you recommend this with now?
Smoked salmon would be ideal with this.
For this one?
Yeah, because it's going to cut through the oiliness that you get in smoked salmon. But also sashimi, the sliced Japanese raw fish would be really nice with that, with white fish.
Do you use other different wine barrels or anything like that?
Yes, we have the Merlot barrels, which we age the wild red in. But we also have a Sauterne barrel, this with French sweet wine as well.
Kate, you mentioned the barrels. Tell me about the process of making mead.
We opened our meadery in Kinsale in 2017. So we bring honey in. We'd use a whole barrel for one small batch of 1,000 litres. So it's about 1/3 honey and 2/3 our local water. So you warm water. You don't want to heat honey up warmer than hive temperature, which is about blood temperature, or you lose those delicate flavours that bees have worked so hard for. So we mix it up and we put in a wine yeast, and then it ferments in the tank. And once it's reached about 12% alcohol, because they're wine strength mead that we make, we then filter out as much of the yeast as we can, and we leave it to mature in the tank. And for the barrel age, then the extra year, they sit in the barrel. So the last one we're going to try is actually the only mead we have made from Irish honey. It's from our local beekeeper, Paul Kelly, down in Clonakilty. And his bees are foraging on the West Cork hedgerows. Hawthorn and white blackberry blossom would be predominant in our hedgerows around here. Semi-sweet dessert mead. So this would be maybe with something with a creamy sauce.
Do you serve it chilled normally?
The traditional meads we'd serve lightly chilled. You don't want to over chill them, much like wine. You lose the flavour if they're super chilled. So, but the wild red mead we do at room temperature.
Now, you mentioned that this mead here was the only one made with Irish honey. Why is that?
Ireland is a very low producer of honey. We looked at the EU figures, we're the third lowest after Malta and Luxembourg, you know. We're quite far north, so the flowering season compared to Spain, where we get most of our honeys, will start much later and finish much earlier.
Well, Kate, thank you very much for your time. It's wonderful to see you doing so well, and I'm looking forward to tasting some more. Mead is absolutely beautiful.
Great to meet you.